But yeah, it's already started. What's good? Clarity Act hearing has already started, so I'm gonna just go ahead and get right to it because I'm a little late.
In 50 years, America has led the world in financial innovation. For 15 years, blockchain technology has redefined what's possible. For 10 years, Congress has worked to write the rules of this new financial frontier. And for 1 year, we've had a statutory framework for payment stablecoins. Now, it's our turn to meet the moment. Today, we'll hear from experts who are building the next generation of financial innovation, and we'll hear from them on why they believe the Clarity Act is essential. I thank all of our witnesses for being here today, and I thank my colleagues for making the trip up to New York for this important discussion. I think it's our opportunity to unlock the next 250 years of innovation here in the United States of America. It's time to pass clarity. I yield back, and I now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Chairman French Hill, for 1 minute for his opening statement.
Well, Chairman Sal, thank you for convening this hearing in historic Federal Hall, such an incredible place to be in our semi-quincentennial, and as you say, echo the success that Congress has had in spurring innovation and economic growth here for 250 years. Our leadership in finance and technology depends on clear, predictable rules. That's been at the heart of financial oversight throughout our nation's history. 1 year ago today, we passed the Clarity Act and also saw Genius enacted into law. If we want to have the ultimate success in our economy and see the transition of a traditional finance on an analog basis to a distributed ledger blockchain basis, the country has to have the rules to make the U.S. the center of that digital ecosystem in the world. This is President Trump's goal. This was the work behind Genius and Clarity last year. So we stand ready to help our Senate colleagues complete the work and get it to the President's desk, and I thank you for convening the hearing, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Today we welcome the testimony of 4 distinguished witnesses. We have Ms. Sarah Aberg, Chief Legal Officer at Nova Labs. We have Ms. Randy Abernathy, Head of Clearing and Group Risk at Bullish. Ryan Lovar, Chief Legal Officer at Wisdom Tree. And Jason...
Wow.
Jason Somensato, the Director of Policy at Kween Center. We thank each of you for taking the time to be here. Each of you will be recognized for 5 minutes to give an oral presentation. Without objection, your written statements will be made part of the record. Ms. Aberg, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Steele, Chairman Hill, and members of the subcommittee. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Sarah Aberg. I am the Chief Legal Officer at Nova Labs, the company that created and supports the Helium network, the world's largest decentralized wireless network. Helium is a physical telecommunications infrastructure, wireless access points deployed in communities across the country that provide real coverage to real people every day. Blockchain is the technology that makes the network run, and cryptocurrency is the incentive that built it. Today, that network is more than 140,000.
I'm telling y'all to go to YouTube.
It provides carrier-grade Wi-Fi offload to major carriers, including T-Mobile and AT&T, and serves millions of American users every day. Nova Labs provides telecommunication services in all 50 states and holds an FCC Section 214 authorization. The Helium network has been operational since 2020, and it was not built in the usual way. Instead of spending billions on towers, the Helium network was built by tens of thousands of individuals and businesses who deployed hotspots because a token reward made it worthwhile. Compensation for verified wireless service measured and paid automatically by the protocol. That model has proven itself under pressure. When Hurricane Helene knocked out cellular service across western North Carolina, Helium and the veteran-led nonprofit Team Rubicon deployed portable beacons on satellite backhaul and reconnected tens of thousands of devices within days. In Redondo Beach, California, a waterfront district had near zero cell coverage for years because high-rise buildings blocked the signal before it reached the pier. The city closed that gap simply by enabling helium offload on Wi-Fi it already had. No new hardware, no capital expense, and now it connects more than 2,000 people.
So I'm gonna do what
the helium network has also absorbed cellular surges during major events like Mardi Gras and Super Bowl weekend.
If you want to see the
It is
screen,
being used to improve indoor 911 location accuracy, where the FCC's own data shows that today, fewer than 1% of wireless 911 calls deliver a usable, dispatchable location, and to bring affordable broadband into public housing. These are public benefits built by communities.
Guys, it's just a hearing. We got to get past the hearing and go to the full Senate vote.
In January of last year,
Saying somebody accident
on the
passed
last business day before the new administration took office, the SEC sued Nova Labs. Its theory was that selling hotspots that rewarded deployers in tokens for delivering verified wireless coverage was an unregistered securities offering. It went further, alleging that our mobile phone plan, a phone plan, was also an unregistered offering because subscribers could opt in to earn rewards for helping map coverage. Each of these digital asset claims was later dismissed with prejudice. We were glad to be vindicated, but we spent years and significant resources defending claims that were ultimately abandoned. Those were years not spent deploying hotspots, not building emergency communications capabilities, and not connecting underserved communities. That is the real cost of regulatory ambiguity. It does not protect investors, it deters the companies that want to follow the rules, and it doesn't stop bad actors from breaking them. The Clarity Act fixes this, and that is why Nova Labs supports its passage. Clarity is not a call for deregulation, it is a call for the right regulation. From the right regulator, under rules that market participants can understand and follow. It distinguishes between digital assets that function as securities and digital commodities that power operational networks, and it assigns oversight accordingly between the SEC and CFTC. For a network like Helium, that clarity is not abstract. It determines whether the incentive that built the network up to 140,000 hotspots can continue to drive deployment, and whether the public benefits that flow from the network, emergency communications, broadband access, and resilience during disasters and network congestion, can reach more communities. The community has already done the hard work. The House passed Clarity a year ago, and I respectfully urge the committee to see it through to enactment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Abernethy, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Hill, Chairman Stile, Ranking Member, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the invitation to testify and for bringing this hearing to New York, the financial capital of the world. My name is Randy Abernethy. I'm head of clearing and group risk at Bullish, a publicly traded digital asset firm listed on the New York Stock Exchange, just a short walk from here. I've spent my career in clearing and risk management for regulated market infrastructure at LCH, at Barclays, and at Nodal Exchange before joining Bullish. Let me tell you briefly who we are. Bullish is an institutionally focused digital asset platform. Our chief executive, Tom Farley, ran the New York Stock Exchange, and we built Bullish deliberately to look and operate like the regulated exchanges and clearinghouses that made American markets the envy of the world. Because the United States had no federal framework, we built under regulators abroad, in Germany, Hong Kong, and Gibraltar. But when American regulators opened a door, we walked through it.
What's good?
Last September, New York's Department of Financial Services licensed us to serve U.S. customers, and we are now working with the CFTC and NFA on the registrations needed to operate a federally regulated exchange, clearinghouse, and intermediary. We are not asking to operate in the shadows. We are asking for a rule book, and we intend to build under it. That is why the Clarity Act matters. 1 year ago today, the House passed it, 294 to 134, with strong bipartisan support. By drawing a clear line between the SEC and the CFTC, it gives responsible firms what they've asked for over a decade of uncertainty while capital and innovation moved offshore. And I want to be direct. Regulatory clarity is not a favor to industry. It is how Congress brings this activity onshore under American regulators with American investor protections. From where I sit, running clearing and risk, that's the heart of it. The failures that hurt investors, most notably FTX, happened offshore, beyond the reach of any American regulator. Under this framework, registered exchanges would live under the disciplines that have protected investors for generations: segregated customer assets, capital requirements, surveillance, and federal examination. Bullish follows these principles voluntarily today. We are eager for oversight that makes them mandatory for everyone. As the Senate takes up its bill, I want to focus on one detail that matters enormously in practice: the treatment of exchange affiliates. While early drafts would have flatly banned affiliates of an exchange from trading on it, we have appreciated that Senate leaders have shown a willingness to align itself with the House version of the bill, which instead permitted affiliate activity subject to guardrails. That's the right answer, and for 3 reasons. First, affiliate trading is not some novel feature of crypto. It's common and often necessary in the very markets this legislation uses as its model. Futures exchanges clear through affiliated clearinghouses. Clearinghouses trade for their own account to manage defaults and correct errors. Exchanges rely on affiliates to provide liquidity in new markets until independent market makers arrive. And the SEC expressly permits a broker-dealer running an alternative trading system to trade on its own platform. If a ban were necessary to protect investors, our securities and futures markets wouldn't be built the way they are. Second, these structures are safe because they come with guardrails that work: strict segregation of customer assets, conflict of interest management, disclosure, and anti-manipulation enforcement. The Clarity Act applies that same proven architecture to digital assets. Third, FTX is invoked in this debate, and invoked incorrectly. FTX did not fail because affiliates traded on it. FTX was an unregulated offshore exchange whose affiliate misappropriated customer assets, deploying them largely on other unaffiliated venues. A trading ban would not have stopped that. Every element of that conduct was already illegal for registered firms. In fact, the one piece of FTX that survived was LedgerX, its CFTC-regulated exchange and clearinghouse, precisely because it was under federal supervision. Not a dollar of customer assets were lost there. The lesson of FTX is not to ban practices regulated markets have used safely for decades. The lesson is to bring these markets inside the federal perimeter, which is exactly what this bill does. Bullish is the kind of company this legislation is designed to reach, and we want to build the future of finance here, in America, under American rules. I encourage Congress to finish the job and get the details right. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Abernethy. Mr. Lovar, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Hill, Chairman Stile, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Ryan Lovar. I serve as the Chief Legal Officer and Head of Business and Legal Affairs Digital Assets for WisdomTree, a $160 billion asset manager listed on the New York Stock Exchange and headquartered here in New York City. I've spent more than 25 years working at the intersection of asset management, ETFs, digital assets, and tokenization, focused on legal, compliance, risk management, and policy. The Clarity Act matters because it can provide the market structure certainty around asset classification and SEC and CFTC jurisdiction, with broader modernization provisions needed for responsible tokenization and blockchain-based infrastructure to scale in the United States. Section 505 is particularly important because it preserves the principle that a tokenized security should remain the security it represents. At the same time, it fosters the proposition that regulators should be able to modernize how operational requirements apply to blockchain-based infrastructure. That is the right balance. Same regulatory substance, modernized operational mechanics. Tokenization is often described as a new asset class, but it is better understood as a new set of rails for owning, transferring, and settling financial products. What changes is the infrastructure through which the asset can be held and moved. An analogy to ETFs is helpful. ETFs did not invent stocks or bonds. They gave investors greater
Make sure y'all share
transparency
the
and
live. Make sure
access
y'all
to
hit
those
the like
asset
button as
classes
y'all
at
coming
lower
in and
cost.
subscribe to the channel.
Tokenization can do something similar and potentially more compelling by modernizing the speed and flexibility of financial infrastructure while preserving investor protections. That is especially important in markets that increasingly operate around the clock. For most Americans, the focus is not really about blockchain, but realizing the benefits that may come from it. WisdomTree is proof that this can be done responsibly. Earlier this year, WisdomTree became the first and to date only firm to receive SEC exemptive relief, allowing SEC-registered broker-dealers to trade an SEC-registered money market fund, the WisdomTree Tokenized Money Market Fund, 24/7, 365, enabling instant settlement for tokenized fund shares for the first time under U.S. law. We also offer the largest lineup of SEC-registered funds that are tokenized in the market, 15 funds spanning equity, fixed income, alternative, and asset allocation through our WisdomTree Prime and Connect platforms, while also making available tokenized gold, Bitcoin, Ether, and a dollar stablecoin available through our WisdomTree Prime platform. Importantly, WisdomTree has chosen the more regulated path rather than the easier one. Our tokenized fund business includes a variety of SEC-registered entities, SEC-registered investment advisor, transfer agent, investment company, and broker-dealer. And the tokenized gold, Bitcoin, Ether, and stablecoin side of the business is operated under a New York limited purpose trust company underseen by the New York State Department of Financial Services and a money services, money transmission license business. This structure reflects our belief that responsible innovation requires identifiable, regulated entities accountable to investors and regulators. The Genius Act has already shown that clear congressional rules can bring serious institutions off the sidelines. Clarity can do the same at far greater scale for the broader digital asset market. And that matters for U.S. leadership. The question is no longer whether finance will become more digital. It will. The question is whether the United States will continue to lead in developing the next generation of financial infrastructure while preserving the strengths that have made its capital benchmarks the capital markets, a global benchmark for innovation and investor protection. WisdomTree's experience shows that responsible tokenization is possible today. The Clarity Act can help make it repeatable, scalable, and available to more investors. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lovar. Mr. Somonsato, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Hill, Chairman Stile, members of the subcommittee. I was first asked to comment on a draft crypto market structure bill back in 2018. At the time, one Bitcoin had fallen to roughly $3,000. The term DeFi had only recently been coined to describe a small and experimental corner of the ecosystem. And beyond a relatively small group of developers, users, and entrepreneurs, many people viewed crypto as a technology whose moment might have already passed. But even then, the core policy challenge was clear. Congress needed to find a way to empower regulators to protect customers and ensure market integrity while preserving the open peer-to-peer architecture that makes blockchain networks unique. Nearly a decade later, much has changed. Many are worried because Bitcoin is only up 2,000% since the lows of 2018. DeFi has grown from an obscure idea into a term that is used in legislation, regulation, and enforcement actions. And the industry built around crypto networks now includes not only startups, but some of the largest companies in technology and traditional finance. For me personally, I've spent the past 8 years engaging in the development of market structure legislation from several different perspectives. At the CFTC, including my roles running Lab CFTC and working for Chairman Benham, I provided detailed technical analysis to Congress on what authority the CFTC would need to oversee these markets. At Chainalysis, I engaged policymakers on illicit finance issues involving crypto networks. And now at Coin Center, the place that I got my first opportunity in this ecosystem back in 2014, I focus on the public interest and civil liberties issues raised by open blockchain networks. From all of those perspectives, I believe Clarity answers the call. The work is largely done. The provisions have been negotiated. The stakeholders have been engaged. And most importantly, The House passed a bipartisan bill 1 year ago that would create a robust framework for regulating crypto markets while protecting the underlying networks and those who develop them from inappropriate regulation. That latter point is essential. Blockchain networks are not merely a new way to trade assets. At their best, they are open computing networks that allow individuals to hold and transfer value without depending on a bank, exchange, payment processor, or other centralized intermediary. They give individuals the freedom to transact in a peer-to-peer fashion without being censored or unnecessarily surveilled. That is why developer protections are key to market structure legislation. If Congress creates clear rules for centralized cryptocurrency businesses, but leaves developers exposed to open-ended liability for building non-custodial software, then the legislation will have protected part of the market while undermining the technology that makes that market possible. The Clarity Act recognizes this in several ways. First, it includes protections designed to ensure that software developers and infrastructure providers are not required to register with the SEC or CFTC simply because they write code, publish software, validate transactions, or otherwise support the functioning of a blockchain network without taking control of customer assets or acting in a trusted capacity as a traditional intermediary. Second, Clarity protects developers through the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, a long-term priority for Coin Center. The BRCA addresses the most serious risk facing non-custodial software developers of being treated as an unlicensed money transmitter and clarifies that developers and service providers that never take control of customer funds shall not face such a threat in the future. These provisions effectively protect developers without weakening the regulatory protections core to Clarity. Securities laws still apply to securities intermediaries. Clarity even creates new categories for businesses operating in the digital commodity markets and imposes stringent regulations on those newly defined intermediaries. And where a business is properly regulated as a financial intermediary, the Bank Secrecy Act still applies to prevent money laundering and terrorist financing. Clarity keeps regulation focused on the people who actually perform intermediary functions. And for these reasons, Coin Center applauds the House for its work in passing Clarity and encourages the Senate to pass equivalent legislation as part of its market structure efforts. This has been a long process, but the pieces are now in place. Congress can meaningfully improve market integrity and customer protection while also preserving the open networks, non-custodial tools, and peer-to-peer architecture that makes this technology worth protecting. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Somozato. We'll now turn to member questions. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. History teaches us when transformative technologies come online, they also often face skepticism before becoming foundational to our economy. A century ago, that was electricity. 50 years ago, personal computer. 30 years ago, commercial internet. Each of these technologies matured, though, and policymakers developed legal and regulatory frameworks that gave businesses, investors, and consumers confidence to innovate, invest, and drive widespread adoption. Blockchain technology has now existed for more than 15 years. It's no longer a theoretical concept. It's a practical technology powering real businesses, real networks, and real economic activity. Yet despite its maturity, entrepreneurs and developers are still facing significant uncertainty about how the digital assets are classified and regulated, which brings me to you, Ms. Aberg. Is it fair to say that without blockchain technology, helium would not exist? In other words, are blockchain and digital assets found fundamental to helium's business model rather than simply being an added feature?
Absolutely. The network would not exist without blockchain. The network operates across 140,000 unique access points deployed by thousands of individuals and small businesses. That's a distributed, decentralized network infrastructure.
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
That infrastructure needs to be coordinated between all these discrete points. Blockchain is the technology that allows us to do that.
So knowing that, what's the real world consequences of the lack of clarity in this space from a regulatory standpoint for your business trying to deploy internet and access to consumers across the country?
So the status quo is that there's not a distinction between tokens that operate a functional network like helium and tokens that are sold as part of an investment contract and for raising capital. We suffer the consequence of that directly on January 17th, 2025. Thankfully, those claims were dismissed. But right now, without codification of that into law, we could face those exact same claims again by under a new administration, new chairman of the SEC.
Thank you very much. I want to jump to you, Mr. Somatsato, and talk DeFi a little bit. Building on a similar theme here, financial markets have grown along technological innovation. 200 years ago, finance relied on handwritten ledgers, horse-drawn or horse-delivered communications. 100 years ago, telegraph and then telephone connected markets. 50 years ago, we got closer to the internet. Today, blockchain technology is giving us an ability to decentralize networks that can coordinate financial activity without a centralized or without a central intermediary. Blockchains enabled that growth and decentralization. So the question comes to you, why is it important that a regulatory framework recognize the unique characteristics of decentralized networks rather than treating them as if they were traditional centralized networks?
Yeah, so I think the fundamental innovation of what we're talking about here is this ability to transact in a peer-to-peer fashion, as you mentioned. And part of that recognition from the regulatory perspective is identifying what are the technology tools here that are being used versus those individuals who are participating in activities that would traditionally trigger registration and regulation. And I think the technology is fairly novel and new in the way that it interacts with financial infrastructure, but it is important to understand that the key innovation here is equivalent to having a tool in place, just like when the markets went from open floors to electronic trading, right? It wasn't the computers and the network wiring that we started regulating, it was the institutions that use those for regulated purposes, and the same is true in this transition.
Thank you very much. I want to jump to you, Mr. Lovar, if I can. Digital assets represents the next chapter. You talked a little bit in your testimony about how you use ETF and ETPs to navigate around some of the roadblocks that are standing in the way. What are those roadblocks? How do we unlock them, and what happens when we do?
Yeah, I look at it from a couple of different angles. First off, digital assets under the umbrella of sort of crypto assets and then tokenization. So let me start off with crypto assets. And so we develop products, exchange-traded products that invest in those assets. So that was our first foray nearly 8 years ago. One of the roadblocks at the time, and then fast forwarding, was that there wasn't a clear delineation of how those assets were categorized. And ultimately, we had an SEC at the time that was really looking at these in terms of not a way under the traditional securities laws and types of disclosure, but more market-based regulation. And so our goal was to launch products investing in those assets at the same time through our U.S. business and through our Europe business. But ultimately what happened is we were able to launch, due to the regulatory environment in the U.S. going back a few years, we were able to launch in Europe many products investing in many digital assets that have now garnered a couple billion in assets, where we were way behind in the U.S.
This is our big opportunity, is to put forward a clarity and a regulatory framework so that folks are investing and developing and deploying here in the United States, not in Europe, not in locations around the globe. Cognizant of the time, I'll yield back. I'll now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. French Hill of Arkansas, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To commemorate the fact that we're in this historic location in our semi-quincentennial, I'd like to ask that a talk I gave about Hamilton's restructuring of the debts negotiated in this building be inserted in the record.
Without objection, and I encourage folks to read it.
Yeah. Well, that won't happen, but we'll insert it in the record. Well, I think we've heard a clarion call today for clarity. And that's really helpful, because we've worked in the House, and many of you have been involved in that, really since 2018 under Maxine Waters' chairmanship. We dealt with Libra, we dealt with David Marcus going from PayPal to try to explore that. We dealt with FTX's collapse, and Maxine gave important leadership there. And then certainly under Kevin McCarthy as Speaker and Patrick McHenry as Chairman of the committee, you've seen us systematically try to educate members on both sides of the aisle of the importance of making this transition and having fit-for-purpose rules that do not confuse a functional blockchain token for a security investment contract. And that's been at the heart of FIT 21, which we passed 2 Congresses ago, and then, of course, the Clarity Act last summer that we commemorate today with 78 Democratic votes. So this has been a bipartisan priority. And your clarion call today really, I think, helps us focus why it's important. And I want to start out, with Mr. Luvar, and there's a lot of conversation, particularly on, I'd say, blockchain ecosystem chatter on X and elsewhere about, well, if the Senate can't pass clarity, don't worry, we can just do all this through exemptive relief. You're a beneficiary of exemptive relief. Could you tell us how much more important it is to have something put in law for the regulatory and legal certainty of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're very grateful, the positioning that the SEC staff has taken under the current leadership in being innovative and forward-thinking and granting exemptive relief.
But the exact opposite of the last SEC.
Yep.
Would you agree with that? Is this different from Gary Gensler's SEC?
It is different. Certainly we're seeing the winds of innovation behind our back, very much a different atmosphere, if you will, very pro-innovation. But, we really need durable rules that are embedded within what Congress has approved. That's what's important, so understanding that those asset classifications, the distinction between the SEC and CFTC jurisdiction, the ability to modernize is not just up to the agency, which should embolden and empower the agency and provide the agency with the resources it needs, but really needs to be embedded in law so it can carry administration to administration.
I agree completely that as the chairman outlined in his opening statement, we've seen the migration of our legal and regulatory structure to meet the need for advancing American economic performance, no matter what generation. And we're at another one of those turning points, as we were in the 90s, with the decisions taken by Congress to not regulate the internet, to let it be an open source network, but to regulate activity on the internet. And once again, we're at that fit for purpose moment. Ms. Iberg, such a great, compelling testimony about the success of the Helium Network, and I think it's very educational for members and the public to see distributed ledger technology used in a practical way that's not tangled up in Wall Street jargon. And so you're not the only company with a big success story there, but I think it is a way to illustrate what it is that we're talking about in a way that a lot of people can understand. But you are a victim of regulatory and legal uncertainty. And again, you echo, I'm sure, this comment that the statute is the only way to achieve that for innovators in the country and to make America a safe and sound leader in this. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absent clear rules, which we intend and want to comply with, compliance becomes impossible. It is at best guesswork. The regulatory environment that changes with an election cycle is not sustainable, it's not durable, and it does not support long-term infrastructure projects like ours. So the only way to do that is through legislation, and that precludes the next SEC chair from simply, changing his mind and reversing the guidance that we're under now.
Right. Thank you for that. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Timmons, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is wonderful to be here as we mark the 1-year anniversary of the Genius Act being signed into law. We are also getting closer to bringing the Clarity Act across the finish line with the goal of ensuring America leads the world in digital asset, innovation, and emerging technology. As we discuss what a fully implemented Clarity Act would mean for the future of digital assets in the United States, I want to begin with you, Mr. Sato. One of the Act's central goals is to establish a clear regulatory framework that promotes innovation while strengthening market integrity and consumer confidence. How will the Clarity Act encourage responsible innovation while also safeguarding its illicit finance, market manipulation, and operational risks?
I think the key is in defining those entities that will fall within the regulatory perimeter and then empowering regulators to actually oversee them. I mean, truthfully, the discussions around the regulation of this industry for the past decade have been, one of excitement and newsworthiness. And as a former regulator, it should be a fairly boring job, right? You should know the entities that are under your jurisdiction and be able to implement that. At the same time, we're talking about a novel technology that has the potential to be very innovative and be used in a bunch of different ways, as you've heard from some of the witnesses today. And what that requires is an understanding of where that line is, right? So many have been acting in an environment in which, there's kind of unclear, unwritten rules out there. There's evolving interpretations between various regulators. And that's just not an environment in which, if you're a software developer or somebody who wants to see some of the future innovations be built, that you can really operate easily in. And so the fact that Clarity kind of draws those very clear lines, gives guidance both to the regulators and to the individuals participating in these networks is really powerful.
Thank you for that. Regulation by enforcement during the previous administration drove much of America's digital asset innovation overseas. How will the Clarity Act help reverse that trend, and what impact do you expect it to have on bringing companies' investment, talent, and technological innovation back to the United States?
I think one of the unique aspects, I'm not an expert on kind of which jurisdiction is ahead and which one is behind, but at least from my perspective, seeing a lot of the individuals who are in the US are probably some of the people at the cutting edge of thinking about this innovation. And then there's a lot of structuring to get out of the country to avoid potential regulatory hiccups over the last few years. And that is an environment that is just not conducive to seeing the development that you would want to see in a country, right? Again, going back to that point of if you have the clear established rules plus the clarity of who is outside of that, right? And we think it's very important from Coin Center's perspective on the BRCA and some of those developer protections to create the environment in which, individual ingenuity, absorbing some of the American values of liberty and freedom of speech that are inherent in this technology, allowing people to kind of build off of those is really important.
I'm going to expand on what you just said. It's just very fitting that we're here at Federal Hall 250 years ago. The American experiment literally created the most freedom in the history of human civilization. And I actually think that emerging technologies, digital assets, blockchain technology is going to help freedom flourish in a way that few other things have in human history because of the decentralized nature of it. So we had a hearing on my subcommittee, on the Oversight Committee, Military and Foreign Affairs, about the challenge that emerging technology will pose to authoritarianism. And if you think about the tools of authoritarianism, of autocracy, is information control and capital control. If you can control what your citizenry believes to be true, and if you can control their resources, you can control them. And this is going to have a huge impact on authoritarian governments' ability to control their population's wealth. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I think, honestly, blockchain technology is even just one aspect of that, right? We're in a time now where technology is changing so quickly, and how governments choose to interact with that and with the people is an extreme new risk, right? And it's really important to kind of ensure that the values that protect the individuals from participating in these and developing these and, allowing the development of that digital space to look like the development of our physical space in this country 200 years ago is extremely important.
The Clarity Act is incredibly important in maintaining the U.S. economy as the center of the global economy. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, to the extent that this is going to be a technology that is infused into the businesses of all these other witnesses here, it is imperative that that be within the structures, just like our securities markets are, just like our derivatives markets are, right? I think part of the reason of their success over the years has been the regulatory environment in which they get to operate.
Thank you for that. We're on the 1 yard line. We just got to score the touchdown. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Stutzman, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's great to be here. Thank you to the committee for hosting us here at Federal Hall. It's neat to be sitting here discussing future technology in these hallowed halls here. Last night we were at Francis Tavern, and I was thinking, that used to be one of those central points of information. But it was fun just to be there and thinking about the history of our great country and the founding of our country, and what we've done in the last 250 years. But our conversation today really is going to affect what the next 250 years is going to be like in our country. As we discussed earlier, 1 year ago today, this House passed the Clarity Act with one of the strongest bipartisan votes in Congress. It cleared Senate banking 2 months ago, yet it is still sitting on the Senate calendar. Every witness here today has a story about what delay cost: faster payments, markets open around the clock, and American innovation that flees overseas. In business, we have a saying that I can handle a yes or a no, but I can't handle suspense. And that's what it feels like we're dealing with today. I want those costs on the record today and to send one clear message that it's time to pass the Clarity Act. Ms. Iberg, I'd like to ask you, because I represent Northeast Indiana, a lot of rural communities. We have a lot of underserved areas that are underserved by major internet providers, and we've spent billions of taxpayer dollars subsidizing broadband in this country, unfortunately with not so much to show for it. Can you tell us how rural America, and especially Hoosiers watching at home, how your network can benefit them?
Absolutely. So one of the problems with the initiative to roll out broadband to rural communities under the BEAD program is that the fiber and cable came out to those communities, but the last mile was not met. And so you have pretty much useless unlit cable and fiber in the ground. What Helium can do is connect to that backhaul and then create a shareable signal for that community in central spaces where they're used by the people in that community. The advantage of doing that is that, one, you're using not bespoke equipment, but typically any Wi-Fi hardware can be converted or to connect to the Helium network. You don't have to buy special equipment. The deployer of that hardware then is able to earn token rewards that are programmatically and automatically distributed via the Helium protocol, which is a blockchain protocol, to that deployer. So that deployer is incentivized to create a signal that then benefits the community that deployer is in. So it empowers the people in those communities to serve themselves and help their neighbors.
You mentioned a lawsuit by the Biden administration in your testimony. If the Clarity Act had been law, do you think that frivolous enforcement action would have happened at all?
Absolutely not. As written, the Clarity Act clearly exempts transactions like those that pay HNT to Helium deployers under the programmatic and automatic distributions within the gratuitous distribution carve-out. That recognition explicitly identifies tokens that power functional networks like ours versus tokens that are used to raise capital. They're two completely different things, two completely different risk profiles, and we should not have been categories in the other.
What a huge setback. Ms. Abernathy, I'd like to ask you, your exchange is already regulated in Germany, Hong Kong, and Gibraltar, but has only just gotten a foothold here in the U.S., and I think that sequence speaks volumes. Why did a company like Bullish have to go abroad first before setting up shop here in the United States, where you think that this would be a no-brainer for us?
Yeah, so when we...
Your microphone, please.
Thank you. That's better. So when we launched the exchange, that was back in 2021, at that point, there was very limited regulatory jurisdictions that actually had proper investor protections as part of any kind of regulatory framework. And to us, that was and always has been, still is, very important. And that was why we needed to find that regulatory structure. So again, in 2021, when we launched the exchange, we went to Gibraltar because it was actually one of the few that had a regulatory framework with proper investor protections.
Wow, it's fascinating. My time's almost set to expire, so I'll just yield back, Mr. Chairman, but thank you both for your answers.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Herodopoulos, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as a history teacher, I love being here. This is fantastic, and I could not be more appreciative of the fact that the opportunities that will afford so many Americans with this new legislation will clearly be enhanced. And one of the fundamentals I've always worked from is the idea that the key with government is offering certainty and stability. And Ms. Aberg, I'm really saddened to hear your story today and the unfortunate nature of what has happened. And I'm so glad to see we're finally moving forward with some clarity so that you can operate here in America and grow these opportunities. And this financial framework we're talking about is really what makes America the unique place. Everybody wants to do business here. Unfortunately, the previous administration did not provide that certainty and stability, and thus the dollars are going elsewhere, jobs are going elsewhere, and it's so important that we do it this the right way. And again, I want to applaud the chairman, Mr. Stile from Wisconsin, where walking us through the historic picture when America acts with that certainty and stability, starting with Hamilton and others, providing the haven where people can invest with confidence, knowing that the rules will be there in part. And that means our kids and grandkids will actually have the jobs of the future that are in places around the world we never thought they would be. Mr. Lovar, if I could ask you, traditional crypto and traditional companies will now compete under these equal rules or same rules. How does this bill, in your mind, create that level playing field we've all been looking for?
Yeah, so I think, look, we're, proponents, and we have been, operating under a regulated infrastructure. I think, bringing that, recognition that requires, governance, risk management, an understanding of clear rules, whether the asset you're operating under or the regulatory jurisdiction you're operating under, SEC or CFTC, whether you're an established financial services firm like WisdomTree or a fintech, just having those knowable rules will allow you to continue to build your business, and more particularly, build it here in the U.S. under those knowable rules.
And Mr. Soben-Cento, if I could, on the DeFi issue, in the bill, it specifically excludes the certain rules with DeFi. What would happen if we did not have that same clarity? What would happen to DeFi if we did not provide the structure that's in this bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would continue the environment that we've been in for a while now, which is, listen, the developers are creating pretty novel technologies, right, that do test the questions around what should and shouldn't fall into a regulatory environment. And it's really incumbent on Congress to kind of come forward and say, this is where we draw the line. And from us, for a perspective, like, there are important protections to be had, right? First Amendment protections to be able to write code, protections to participate in these networks and a peer-to-peer management without having, surveillance from the government that might be unnecessary. And so clarity is really important at just, again, making that line clear so that that development activity can continue, right? And that people can understand when the development activity and the business activity flows into something that's regulated, that they know where that falls as well. And clarity is very specific on that line.
Thank you. And I'll just close by saying this. I really appreciate the chairman and also our full Chairman Hill. I mean, a lot of people look at Congress as a very chaotic place, and the way that you've been able to navigate this with the ranking member really makes a difference. And when we go back home, we say we actually made this a bipartisan bill. Everybody had kind of not only a stake in this, but more importantly, a say. And we changed the rules on how we modify this emerging technology. And I couldn't be more pleased to be on a committee that focuses on solutions, not playing politics. And so with that, Chairman, I yield back. And again, thanks for taking this time here at a special place and a special time in our history.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Moore, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to our guests today. Thank you for the candid testimony. And Ms. Zebec, while you were testifying, and I actually was doing a little other research, reading some articles about what all happened, and I think to Mr. Herodopoulos' comments, unbelievable the way the company was treated. And I do want to thank you again for the efforts you all made in Western North Carolina after Helene. That was very helpful to allow commerce to pick back up. So thank you for those efforts. That cannot be expressed enough. I do. It always strikes me as odd. You think about it. Roughly a third of all Americans either own or use digital assets in some manner. So this isn't some fleeting thing that's going to go away. And there are those who look at it and they resist technology. Well, guess what? If we banned automobiles, we'd have 40,000 less deaths a year. But that's not. We're not going to get rid of cars, I don't think. So there's inherent risk in certain technologies. But the guidelines and the proposals and the law that's being worked on with respect to, of course, the Genius and then with Clarity are designed to do that. So it's understandable why companies, with the failure, particularly the 4 years before under the Biden administration, were having to look to go offshore. So I think it's important that we work hard to bring that stability, and that's why I'm proud of what this committee has done and what the House has done to pass this legislation. But it did bring me to another question, Ms. Haberg, and that is, it's clear why these, the market structure is important for financial firms, but tell me about when it comes to companies who are developing blockchain applications outside of traditional finance. Why is it important to have these guidelines as well for them?
It's critical. For pretty much our history embodies why it is so critical. The SEC sued Nova Labs over allegations that the hotspots, so hardware,
so helium. Look, we need to talk about helium.
The deployer of that hardware could earn tokens. It also said that users of a mobile phone plan, that was also an unregistered securities offering because the user of that phone plan could potentially earn tokens if they voluntarily opted into a program where they provided useful information for mapping the network. That we're trying to build infrastructure. We're not trying to raise capital through selling tokens. We've never actually sold tokens in the secondary market other than OTC sales that were constructed with to be regulation D compliant. Clarity defines and allots tokens that are used to run functional networks like ours to the regulation under the CFTC. The CFTC still has its full regulatory toolkit and can bring claims for fraud, manipulation, and abuse in the sale and purchase of those tokens like it always has been. I don't think clarity is a call for deregulation. I think it's a call for the right regulation per the right regulator. And without that clarity, infrastructure projects like ours are not going to be durable in the United States. We need the certainty of legislation codified into law that cannot be changed at the whim of whoever happens to be sitting at the chair of the SEC or the White House.
And so to your point, of course, jurisdictions like the European Union, Singapore, the UK, Hong Kong, and the Emirates have aggressively moved to establish clear digital asset frameworks. Mr. Salmonsato, would bring me to you. What lessons can Congress learn from the jurisdictions that have already adopted these digital asset regulatory frameworks, and where have those frameworks succeeded or fallen short?
I mean, I think the key lesson is more the initiative, right? It is the recognition that there's something novel here and that the markets are developing in a way that requires some kind of regulation, and that there are jurisdictions that have kind of leaned into that and said, okay, we're going to tackle this problem. And we recognize that kind of existing regulation is being tested in a way that we can't just rely on some of the principles that have been there. And so, one, I think it's that, you know, that lesson of, hey, you need to take the initiative, and that comes down to Congress. And then I think the second part is, you know, naturally markets are global environments, right? It's very difficult to put jurisdictional boundaries around markets, and that requires, you know, all the regulators to kind of come together and be able to marry where that makes sense, and that requires, again, that initiative to put some regulatory environment in place.
And in that same thing, just as a follow-up on that, why would you say it's important that any market structure legislation preserve the ability of decentralized finance to innovate while ensuring there is the regulatory oversight focus where there are risks?
Yeah, I mean, for us, that is the core innovation here, right? It is the development of a network that is permissionless to participate in and to be able to transfer value in a peer-to-peer fashion, right? It is the truth that there has been a large development of financial institutions and technology firms building in this environment. But even without those, the technology is still important, and that requires the protection of those people who want to participate at that level.
Thank you, and my time has expired, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the chair of the subcommittee on oversight and investigations, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all very much for being here with us. This is really a great hearing. It's very, very important.
Okay, hurry up.
And it's certainly fitting that we're here at Federal Hall, where capital formation began in our country, and the Clarity Act is about extending that same opportunity to more Americans, not fewer. And I'm sure my colleagues as well, are certainly hoping that the Senate is watching your testimonies and your comments, because they're compelling, and they certainly need to be aware of it. I'm also a little disappointed none of our Democrat colleagues are here. They were invited, and certainly Republicans and Democrats will all benefit, all of America, by passing the Clarity Act. We've passed the Genius Act, as you well know, into law, signed by the president. So, you know, the stablecoins has got its federal framework. The House has done its part in passing Clarity, and truly it's up to the Senate to finish the job. So, Mr. Salmonsato, let me start with you, please. With your experience working at the CFTC and now the private sector, how does the Clarity Act make sure we're not creating new gaps for illicit finance and market manipulation while we're trying to give legitimate businesses certainty?
Yeah, so I think it does a few things. I've talked already about how it, sets the clear lines of which entities are going to be regulated. But then core to that is building off of that to use the traditional anti-money laundering structures that are in place, right? To say that these newly regulated entities are still going to be Bank Secrecy Act regulated and that they will have an obligation to surveil for illicit activity. I used to work at Chainalysis. It's a company that recognizes there's something unique in these networks and the ability to process some of the data and be able to identify potential bad actors. And what you've seen is even something unique in this market of companies that operate using that kind of technology to do enhanced screening or kind of a different form of risk management on their customers and on illicit activity. And so I think kind of putting all of those pieces together with this bill and kind of ensuring that those intermediaries that are rightfully defined as so also have those AML obligations and kind of the kind of, I don't want to say motivation, but the call to implement that is really important.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lover, Wisdom Trade Prime mobile app, tokenized securities for sales. Do you think this will expand access to everyday investors to trade on blockchain? And how does what role does Clarity Act play in that?
Yeah, most certainly. I think, if you look at one of the core benefits, and this
They
gets
ask
to
the
the point
questions,
that
they
Timmons
know the
made as
answer.
well, is you
So
look
say
at
it out
the
loud.
investor being able to have greater control. So we can deliver that tokenized fund share to their own wallet. They control that wallet, and then they can move that fund share to anyone else's wallet
I be
instantly.
doing that. I did that with
If you
these
think about the power of that instant movement, instant settlement, right now,
Yeah,
that
let's
is
explain it.
intermediated. Believe it or not, if you tried to move a traditional share of stock, if you just said, hey, I want to transfer this share of stock to my son or daughter, that is actually not a simple process. It requires a lot of paperwork, multiple days, just to do that simple action. Now I can hold my tokenized share in my wallet, move it immediately. So just bringing back the power
it's definitely
to the
scripted, bro.
investor is critically
They all
important.
reading the script.
The Clarity Act embodies and
All them
notes
in there got
the
the same
power of
piece of
tokenization, that securities that are tokenized or securities themselves, also empowers the SEC and CFTC to continue to innovate. So that's really what's going to continue to allow innovation and growth in this space.
Great. From your perspective, Ms. Lover, where does today's uncertainty over whether a digital asset, which of course the Genius Act tried to clarify, falls under the SEC's or CFTC's jurisdiction, does that create a operational or compliance burden?
It has historically, yes. I mean, from our historical experience, for instance, we tried under the prior administration just have comfort that our tokenized gold product was in fact a commodity. If you think about certificate of title to physical gold in a vault, it seems like pretty clearly a commodity, but it was such a complicated environment that we, didn't have complete comfort. We then said, okay, help us understand, why this should be just considered a commodity.
Who here that made this
Could not
outrageous?
get an
You know, this
answer,
got to do with that.
and this Clarity Act would provide those knowable rules, those durable rules to make clear that answer. I mean, we ultimately launched because we knew we were in the right there, that we had the clear answer, but you want the durable rule to allow you to really have the ultimate comfort there.
Thank you. I believe we have a second round, so we'll have more questions after that. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back, and indeed we do have a second round, so we'll go into a
Well,
second
they in
round
the
of
lobby. Are they
questions
even in
for
a
our
courtroom?
witnesses. I want to dive in, if I
Like they in
can,
the
with you,
hospitality
Matthew,
room.
again.
Look at the food.
A lot of crypto intermediaries and exchanges have
Okay, I
been
know y'all
relying on licenses like the state
Yeah,
money
they
transmitter
not in a
license,
courtroom.
New York BIT license to
That'd be
operate.
courthouse.
But these requirements differ, require compliance with up to 50 regulatory frameworks. And so the question then is, how will clear definitions of digital asset intermediaries' roles impact crypto exchanges such as Bullish? But then in particular, how will providing these types of frameworks at the federal level enable greater consumer protection in the process?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, having clarity over roles and responsibilities is obviously always very, very important. So, you know,
the possibility of liberating blacks.
the rules of the road. They know what they can do.
I just
They
have
know how
to
they can do
ask
it. They
Jay
know what,
Rochelle, are you black? Before I
part of the
respond,
framework, what isn't,
Jay
and
Jay
what
Rochelle,
they need to comply with. To your point, yes,
are
the
you
state by
black?
state is tricky, and not all states have a regulatory framework either or a license. So, you know, we actually believe, you know, one of the biggest investor protections of a federal framework is the fact that it would be federal, that it would be across all states, that there would be a consistency in the licensing and in the requirements, and that everyone would be protected.
That consistency across 50 states, that obviously allows businesses to scale.
And Benjamin's not like me. Okay.
Right, you're going to see hopefully capital deployed in the United States. The other side of this that I'm focused in on not only is making sure that we're investing here in the United States rather than abroad, but also how we're protecting consumers in the process. How does that, having a national framework, benefit consumers rather than the patchwork that we just discussed?
Well, again, to the point, having the framework will bring liquidity onshore. To your point, it will make the markets actually have a structure within which they can grow and develop,
Oh, they ain't really with that, y'all, too much.
which we have not had to date, and that is why liquidity has certainly left. And we've seen it in the past when new regulatory structures have come in to even traditional markets. They have done so with the right protections that have allowed a market to grow, evolve, and effectively protect all consumers involved.
I think there's a real opportunity as this framework builds out. Not only will you see more innovation and development in the United States, I think this is also our opportunity to make sure that there's consumer protection standards in place to help people. The good actors want to root out the bad actors in this space. I think making sure that we have clear lines as to what regulator has what authority where, as Clarity does, provides us huge opportunities in this space. I'll stay with you just for a minute here since we're in a second round.
And Hedera is trying to get.
The Clarity Act really shores up the SEC's authority with respect to digitalizing.
Oh, they going crazy in the Philippines.
As part of an investment contract and allows the SEC registered entities to offer digital commodities on their platforms. Could you just give a little flavor as to why you think that is an important provision inside Clarity?
Yeah, so that's really important as it kind of helps towards the development of kind of a dual registration, if you like, between the SEC and the CFTC. And, you know, as we've seen recently from March 2026, sort of the MOU between the SEC and the CFTC, as well as the interpretation that came out, that the agencies are trying to harmonize and working towards that, which I think would be an incredible benefit because there are overlaps, there are intersections, and they do need to work together. Some of the important ones, one in particular I've been looking at is the portfolio margining that is recently being discussed, which can provide not only more effective and efficient risk management, but it can also actually unlock capital, which then provides more liquidity into the market.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody being here. I'll yield back and I'll recognize the chairman, Mr. Hill, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Let me stay with you, Ms. Abernathy.
Be nice. This was just a hearing.
Talked about
This was just
you've
a
got the
hearing. We
basic
wasn't
exchange,
expecting
people are now writing
just wanted
applications
to
on
watch
this
it
base
to
layer,
make
which
sure
Clarity gives
it wasn't
real
going to be a
benefits
bunch
to.
of
But can you
That's all.
walk through the migration of certain traditional finance intermediated settlement activities to a decentralized blockchain approach and talk about how you see that interoperability? And for example, in the consolidated audit trail plans of the SEC, not my favorite subject, but nonetheless the law of the land.
Who invested $400 million?
Blockchain ATSs or blockchain registered exchanges have an obligation to show that lit market too. Tell me how you're going to comply with that.
So we operate a centralized exchange primarily. So we're not moving into sort of the decentralized space. And so that is how we are evolving, as noted, starting with sort of, we have applications in right now with the CFTC to have our centralized futures exchange clearinghouse and intermediary. We had also recently announced acquisition of Equinity, and the purpose of that was to move into the tokenized securities infrastructure, and we believe combining the platforms does sort of give that full life cycle from issuance and registry to trading and connecting effectively a trusted sort of reporting and regulated transfer agent that was Equinity, or is, and with Bullish's sort of blockchain and trading infrastructure. And
Who is
this
Caitlin
is,
Clark? Mama, she look like Caitlin
this
Clark.
represents the future of the securities market.
This lady right here look like Caitlin Clark. Like she
Thank you,
be Caitlin Clark.
Mr. Lovar, same sort of question to you, since you run a big,
Let me stop. I'll
well-known
take this
traditional finance company that's you're using tokenization. There are a lot of people that, you know, they don't want to be bombarded with information from you 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So tell me the value of tokenized settlement with 7 day a week settlement for your customers. Who's using it now that you're offering it, and what kind of volumes are you seeing?
Yeah, so you know, one of the things I'd note is that you know, we've seen increased volumes just since the passage of the Genius Act. So, you know, one of the important things there is, I think, just Congress, you know, putting its stamp on actually approving a federal framework for, even though that was for stable coins, I just think it underlies the importance of the passage of clarity. So we've seen increased activity since then, including increased stablecoin issuers. So those stablecoin issuers, for instance, are interacting with our money market fund as a reserve asset. So they want that instant liquidity, instant availability, can move into their reserve, and then as their users are moving in and out, also instantly out of that stablecoin, they can similarly move that reserve asset. We're also seeing stablecoin holders that aren't able to obtain yield through holding their stablecoin similarly access our assets, our tokenized funds, particularly our tokenized money market fund, but also the other exposures. You know, I can move my digital assets instantly. I want also, if I'm going to access and interoperate with traditional financial services,
Y'all keep putting nuts and burgers, but y'all gotta understand we had to have
similar
hearing
experience and have the availability to instantly settle,
If
and
the
also
hearing
work
doesn't go well,
24/7 around the clock. I think, as well as, you know, as others are, you know, you're entering into different spaces, it can be difficult to have a financial position that you want to, you know, liquidate, for instance, and not be able to do that on a Saturday.
This is a hearing, so all this hearing was
you know,
going to be was
volatile
talking.
otherwise. So providing that access
Maybe I
to
should
points
explain that yesterday.
24/7, we found to be very important.
Well, this is a hearing, guys. It's a hearing. We have to
Mr.
pass the hearing to get
similar
to
with
the
your
vote.
regulatory experience too.
If the hearing doesn't go well, we don't get
Tokenization
vote.
of collateral
So
pools, we
kind of just told you
net
sometimes
margining,
with this
but
shit you got to sit through boring.
Wouldn't that be a
guys.
big
It's
issue,
what it
and
is.
couldn't that have been helpful in
Gotta
some
sit through boring
catastrophic
shit. I don't like it
situation
either.
like
If I
Silicon
want to get up
Valley?
at
if
7
the
o'clock because I live on the West Coast.
collateral
I
pools,
want
the
to
Federal
7
Home Loan
7
Bank
a.m.
and the Federal
and
Reserve
watch a
Bank of
bunch
San
of
Francisco
Caucasians
had
up
all
here
been
talking.
24-hour accessible with blockchain
You think I want to
accounting.
do that?
Isn't that a way to have more
But I
liquidity,
knew
more safety?
we
in
got
the
to get
financial
past this
system?
hearing.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's
I'll take even a
how I
different
got
example,
my
which is you go back to 2008, and there was a lot of questions about, you know, to what extent was the crisis a result of the derivatives market, and a lot of it was just an unknown exposure between counterparties, you know, and so you have something with more, you know, uniform infrastructure and information available to a regulator. It's a lot more information to glean that maybe it wasn't the case that any one business was underwater, but now we know the credit exposure to each business and can manage that risk better.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, Mr. Chairman, when we think about the benefits and scale of this technology. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman of South Carolina, Mr. Timmons, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's critically important that Congress continue to create the rules of the road to make sure that emerging technology has certainty, and the Biden administration's regulation by enforcement was the exact opposite approach, and now Congress has acted. We put a lot of points on the board.
This ain't no overnight
Genius.
thing
We're
at
about
all,
to put more
guys.
points on board clarity, but
Yeah,
we need to
DeFi
continue
can't
to
text it
build
now. He's sitting here saying shit is gonna take a while.
maintain the certainty
It's
for
gonna take a
businesses
while.
to invest and to give them the rules of the road. And I think the next step, I hope, is going to be around tokenization. I have an NFT bill that we've been working on and plan on filing it after clarity passes.
NFT
I think that
y'all heard that?
this emerging technology changes lives in a way that we can't really fathom. I mean, think about the iPhone came out and just 20 years ago.
What's good,
and
Stephen? What's good?
The world has changed just immensely. I still remember the BlackBerry. So, I mean, I can't think of what 20 years from now is going to look like. And I think that there's some areas that are exciting. And again, all of this emerging technology has value because it streamlines processes, it removes middlemen, it creates transparency, and it gives people more freedom to move their assets. It makes their lives easier. So as it relates to tokenization, there's also a potential for the government to use it. So one thing that I've been thinking about is vehicles. I recently got a new car to register my car. You got to pay taxes, all this stuff. So, I mean, Mr. Lovar, could the government tokenize vehicles and then streamline taxation? I mean, we're having this issue of the gas tax. We got electric vehicles. We're going to have hydrogen vehicles soon. So, I mean, could we use blockchain technology, tokenize vehicles to register and to tax vehicles as they use roads?
Yeah, I think, look, there's many
opportunities for
tokenization. We're focused in the financial services space, but as you note, if you just focus on the underlying fundamentals of, transparent, blockchain database essentially that is immutable. So having that record-keeping functionality that, as you mentioned, can potentially, provide more seamlessness, greater functionality, quicker functionality, having that, in what may traditionally be very, spaces that aren't typically, functioning as fast as they want them to be in terms of cars, registration, taxes. I think, it's potentially a very, very significant use case.
We need
certainly.
to get rid
I have
of
another fun one.
like the registration.
So, I mean, how many people across this country work at the recorder of deeds?
Yeah, we need to get rid of that shit.
I mean,
okay, that's another.
ChatGPT said over 1 billion. So, I mean, if you think about it, we have
and then you already
records that go back hundreds of years to show who owns what and who passed it across title, all of this stuff. So, I mean, we theoretically could tokenize land, and we could, in 20 years, no longer have these questions of deeds or title insurance. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, that's the importance of, you have an immutable, transparent record, and that immutability, it can't be changed. So that's incredibly important. You potentially reduce potential for forgery or the like. Well, you have that transparent record. You can see where it moved, and also you can tell, how it's moved. Does it move to, different, types of actors? So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there as well.
Well, I think that it's hard to even imagine what the world's going to look like in 20 years. But in order for us to continue to be the center of the global economy and to continue to provide the American dream that people have enjoyed for 250 years, we've got to get this right. And that's the importance of passing clarity. And we got to then build on it. And there's other pieces of legislation that will continue to give the rules of the road to the free market to continue to innovate. And it's exciting times. And I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Stutzman is recognized for 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After Mr. Timmons' comments, it reminded me of a picture that I sent to my boys a couple of weeks ago, and it's, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's a guy holding a camera, one of the old video cameras, VHS cameras on his shoulder. He's got I can't even remember the names of these things, VHS, CDs, these big phones, all these different devices that we used to use back in the 80s and 90s, and now it all fits in our hand. I mean, in one hand, and we can stick it in our pocket, and that's how far technology has come. And I think one of the things that is important, especially as we discuss this particular issue, is how do we explain to our constituents and to the American people what this actually does for them in their everyday lives? I mean, I'm trying to schedule a closing here in the next couple of weeks, and we're having to get everybody there all at the same time and, land at the same spot and signatures. And, obviously there's some ways to get around some of that. But Ms. Abernathy, we were talking a little bit about, companies that are going overseas. Can you talk a little bit about, enacting clarity? It would encourage more firms to be here in America. We know the race that we have with China. We know the race that we have with other countries. If we don't get this right, what happens? What do Americans miss out on? I mean, because I know, like, even some of the blockchain technology. How does it apply to a restaurant owner? How does it apply to people in small businesses and healthcare, things like that. And then I'd like to open it up to the rest of the panel too, but Ms. Abernathy, if you could comment on that.
So, I mean, absolutely, if we don't get this right, then there would be a lot of things that are missed out on. Again, from my perspective, from an exchange, getting this right means liquidity comes into the U.S., but what that also means is obviously more capital to do more with, to develop the technology more, to innovate, and to figure those kinds of things out. I'm probably less in that, very technical, exactly how it might help a restaurant or another thing of that nature, but I do, from the exchange perspective, getting this right will absolutely bring liquidity onshore, and bringing liquidity onshore means more capital, means more innovation, and through that innovation, I mean, we've seen it. It's already been mentioned. What's it going to look like in 20 years? Yeah. We don't know, but it all is moving in a digital direction and a direction that benefits customers. It's, otherwise there'd be no point. But it's all benefiting consumers. It's all benefiting all of us.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me a lot of what the chairman said earlier about the internet. We're building the interstate highway. And, we really built the interstate highway for commerce, but also for military purposes. And then all of a sudden you have businesses that are just sprouting up and doing all these different new innovative services and building products for the American people. And that's where we're at today and what can be done. But, whether it's blockchain technology, it's still so new. We probably use it in some ways that we don't even realize. Mr. Solomon-Saudi, you're shaking your head there. I'm kind of curious what some of your thoughts are on what should the American people, why should they support the Clarity Act? Because it's going to help them in their daily lives.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes in layers, right? I think going back to what Mr. Timmons said, it's very difficult to project ahead what the future of technology looks like, other than we know it's going to drastically change things over time. And we've seen development encouraged in this area and a lot of new technologies coming on board. And then I think as you've seen early adoption, it becomes incumbent on Congress to say, here are the rules of the road, so that the companies who do want to build that infrastructure that might be more usable to the individual can create something, right? The goal of technology should be to make things easier, to make them safer. And I'm not some techno-utopian who thinks all of it is going that way, right? Again, it requires each step in the path to kind of focus on that. I mean, one practical example I'll give you, which is I run my kids' swim team, right? I'm the parent volunteer, and this is the year that required credit cards because everything is through online, and it's I'm just looking at our small nonprofit swim team and looking at how much you're paying on credit card fees and how many different accounts I have to set that up. And I'm not saying I don't think crypto is necessarily at a point where it's going to replace all of that, right? But the concept of, hey, a new technology that makes payments easier and that allows them to be in peer-to-peer, coming back to the users and to the individuals in this country, hopefully the development is down a path where at some point you go, hey, this feels more like when I just used to pay for something in cash, right? And it's easy and it's online. And I think that is the hope of building the regulatory structure, allowing the companies to build, is you kind of get that incremental approach towards that.
Thank you.
Yields back. Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Herdopoulos is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then we get into the DeFi issue as well again. One of the defining features of DeFi is that many applications operate through open source software rather than traditional financial intermediaries. As innovation continues in this space, it's important that developers who write and publish software are not treated the same as entities that take custody of consumer assets or control transactions. So the question to you is, how does Clarity help distinguish between software developers and regulated financial intermediaries? And why is protecting developers who build decentralized technologies important for fostering innovation while maintaining appropriate consumer protections?
Yeah, so I go back to the fundamental innovation here being that ability to write up code, offer it up for anybody to use, and that allows you to participate in a network where you do a transaction in a peer-to-peer way. And a DeFi at its best is intended to do something along those lines. And so when you look at Clarity, there's a few ways that it addresses this issue. Let's start with what is our key priority, which is the BRCA, which is right now money transmission, right? There's different concepts of that at a state level, at a federal level, but at a baseline interpretation, it involves somebody taking your money and transmitting it to another person, right? And you play that trusted role because you're taking, hold of their money, you're offering up something to the customer that that they should put their trust in you. And what crypto networks and DeFi at its best will look like is actually it is your ability to take an open source tool and send those transactions direct in a peer-to-peer fashion. In that case, the developers who created that network are not the same thing as money transmitters. But we live in a world where the interpretations around those provisions are flexible, right? And you've seen aggressive prosecutions go after developers, basically on the premise of you develop something and you're going to be liable for the illicit use. What Clarity does is says, no, there are still money laundering laws in place, and there are still important criminal provisions that apply to a developer who might intentionally try to, assist in some money laundering scheme. But if you are developing a neutral platform that's open source that other people can inspect and allow them to do a peer-to-peer transaction, that is not the type of activity that is going to suck you into a regulatory environment. So that's really key in Clarity. And then it also does something similar from the SEC and CFTC registration perspectives.
Thank you. Mr. Lovar, you brought up a great example before talking about transferring stock. Right? And the old way and hopefully the new way, right? And I'm sure we all do wire transfers. It's a pain. You get $30. You got to go in and do all these different steps. Walk us through what a traditional situation you describe if you want to transfer some shares to your daughter in the old way versus what the future might be, just so that we can educate folks who are watching why this is so important.
Yeah, I think, it really boils down to just you're having a number of steps and number of intermediaries, involved in the process. So, first off, it's that I have my account at a financial institution, so they're going to require a certain level of paperwork just to be able to say, hey, I now want to transfer to this account. Whereas, I've lost the control of the ability to be able to move my asset because I'm dependent on that financial intermediary to do so. So it's part of that being able to instruct, if you will. But I have a reliance there, and from there, once that instruction is made, then you have the plumbing to be able to do that, to have to move it, which typically that plumbing takes a good day or two to go through the system of intermediaries to move from one account through, say, the DTCC to another account. So it's that plumbing that is not needed within the wallet-to-wallet direct peer-to-peer example. None of that is needed, actually. So that's really the power of it, and that instantaneous settlement essentially seamlessly.
Great. And Ms. Abernathy, if I could, you guys are the experts at this. We're playing catch up with y'all, and we're trying to create the best legislation possible. When you're talking to your friends who aren't in the finance world, kind of as the answer Mr. Lovar just gave, how do you describe what digital assets are to the layperson who isn't in this field?
I do get asked that often, and it's one that you have to stop and think about. Do you want a sentence, a chapter, or a book? Digital assets. There's so many things. From my perspective, from an exchange perspective, they're another asset class. They're another asset that can be traded, but they can be traded in ways that are similar yet different. The difference is more down to the technology and some of the enhancements that can be done, again, from a risk management perspective, given that's one of my key focuses. We can run margining calls so much more frequently than what is currently under the regulations today. And we can use collateral in a way that, again, the existing regulations haven't thought about. Sorry.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, sorry. But thank you. It's a complex issue, and that's why it's always helpful to get the folks to understand how, as Mr. Lovar described, it's just trying to make our life simpler, but also have that transparency, see if you have the confidence to make that transaction. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Moore is recognized.
Thank you, sir. Digital assets really should not exist or in isolation from the traditional financial markets that we have in the United States. I would submit that one of the reasons that we have been as great prosperous a nation as we have been really falls down to a safe, reliable financial system that underpins all that allows that creative, that entrepreneurship, that growth, that balances the forward thinking to advance and to grow, but also those protections that need to be in place. And so my Yeah, my question, and I would first ask this over to Mr. Luvar, is, first of all, what benefits do you think there are by allowing the traditional financial institutions to participate in the digital asset markets?
I think it goes back to some of those hallmarks that we've touched on earlier in terms of, what is the investor experience potentially benefiting from in terms of, leveraging this technology. And I think ultimately for us, the reference to tokenization or blockchain will in time, fall behind the scenes. The investor will not really be focusing on, is it blockchain, is it tokenization, but what are those benefits that I'm getting? Can I seamlessly move my asset? Do I have transparency in seeing, where it's potentially moving to? Is it quicker than what I'm historically experiencing? And most importantly, can I control my own experience to a greater extent? I think the other important aspect, we touched a little bit on interoperability earlier, but if you think about it, there's multiple rails that the asset can move on, multiple different blockchains. So sure, we support asset movement on 8 different blockchains: Ethereum, Arbitrum, Avalanche, Stellar. And so that allows the investors even greater control to say, okay, here's a financial rail, here are the benefits of that one, attributes that I want to take advantage of, and I want my asset to move within my wallet through that financial rail direct to my counterpart. So really, it's that holistic, I think, set of benefits that are really investors are looking for.
So let me ask you this, and this is going to be open to any of the 4 that want to comment on it. Assuming that we get clarity passed out of the Senate, signed into law, and done, where do you see things 5 years, 10 years, and even we're going to do the 20-year on that one? Like, I don't think VHS is going to be back there, Mr. Stutzman. I think that's gone. But where do you think we are, and how does that apply to the consumer out there across the country?
If I may respond, Mr. Moore. So I think that I think Helium represents a non-financial application of blockchain, and it is already serving millions of Americans on a daily basis, and millions of people in Mexico and soon in Brazil, potentially the United
Getting a lot of helium talk today.
I think what we are showing is that blockchain can be utilized and integrated into incredibly interesting infrastructure projects and other projects to enhance the cost efficiency of the delivery of those services, and make and empower people on a local level to create those services for themselves and their community. It's not limited to wireless. It can happen with sharing. It could help update the energy grid. There are projects using distributed energy models. It can happen on the compute level. There are people sharing gigabytes for running AI programs, for running graphics programs. This enriches communities that are deploying that technology, and it is a way to enhance the delivery of those services already. And blockchain makes that feasible by being the connective tissue between all those discrete contributors.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that? Mr. Luvar?
Yeah, I think, I think naturally as a large ETF sponsor, we look to some analogies there. I think we've seen the growth, and it took the ETF industry, it's only 30 approximately years old, but time to grow from its infancy and now eclipsing mutual funds. So, $10+ trillion, and that goes back to the benefits that those investors are experiencing. As we look at this industry, we're actually seeing a greater growth trajectory. And I think that really goes back to the benefits I talked about earlier. So we're excited for the growth trajectory and really leading and innovating in the space there. And I think clarity will really be the catalyst. You
said why no Democrats? What?
Laws in place,
There's no Democrats there.
just so we're not guessing, uncertain about,
good.
especially the future. Making
That's not good
administration.
at all.
Thank you. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Mr.
I
Muser
guess
recognized.
the text
Thank
that's
you, Mr.
supposed to
Chairman.
come out, they already said that they're
Ms.
not
Aberg,
supporting it.
the
So,
status quo is clearly
I
not
think we need
protecting
7
consumers or
Democrat votes. I
investors
think
or
we need
providing
7.
an environment that
I'm gonna
fosters
get the 7.
innovation. How would the Clarity Act better protect consumers from crypto-related
They-
scams?
They hating at the president getting all this bread.
Clear rules for companies who want to comply to be able to comply with those rules. Right now, under the status quo, there are so many resources being spent by projects like mine on defensive structuring, on outside counsel, on trying to guess at what the regulations require, how they will be applied by a very mercurial SEC. With codified legislation, we have certainty about what the rules are and how to comply with them. I think that it is unquestionably, objectively, a better environment for business and a better environment for innovation, a better environment for builders and for consumers, because consumers know what they're getting into. Investors know how to scope the risk if they want to contribute capital. Counterparties that we deal with can understand what regulations may apply to the activities they're coming into. Right now, all of that is a gray area, and that's just not a sustainable.
It's past time for the Democratic Party to go. It's time for the Republicans to go
Right,
too.
thank you. And we hope our current SEC isn't so mercurial in your view. Ms. Abernethy, how do traditional IPOs compare to digital asset capital raises when it comes to investor protection and how companies can use the money they raise?
Sorry. I'm not getting this microphone thing correct.
That's Caitlin Clark, Mama D. Say, no, I'm just playing, but she look like Caitlin Mama though. She look like she be Caitlin Clark, Mama gang.
Investors should get transparent, sufficient, and accurate information. They need to have enough information to make informed decisions and to ensure there's no fraud or manipulation. That should be no different, whether it's a traditional security or
exactly Mars. Exactly Mars.
The
Mars
investor
said the black senators
that
better
are
vote
involved.
for it. They know blacks in their
been,
district are in crypto. DC and Atlanta. Come on now.
There should
Hey,
be absolutely no difference.
and then it's, if they don't like Trump,
Thank you,
man, that's
Mr.
the problem.
Lover.
They got
You're sort of biting at the bit to maybe answer that question, but I got another question for you first. If you were speaking to the Senate, what would you say to them about the importance of passing the Clarity Act?
Yeah, I think that what we've seen so far is certainly, while Wisdom Tree's sort of focused on the U.S., we've seen a lot of innovation go offshore. We've seen a lot of players offshore. And so, really the Clarity Act and providing that durable framework that it's proposed to provide, I think will really ensure that America continue to be the powerhouse of innovation in capital markets, and we want to build here and continue to do so to have that durability. So I'd say, if you're going to keep America,
so he's already won at life. He's a fucking billionaire. Get the fuck over
it. Mr. Salazar, same question.
They can't get over it.
They can't get over it. It's like
a lot of divergent on crypto, right?
He ran for president
and I think that from my perspective, there's some really fascinating, interesting developments and innovations in this area, and at the same time, there's a lot of flaw, right? And
I didn't like it for 8 years. I
don't think that changes the way that I think Congress should approach this, which is you have constituents who are interested, excited, want to participate in these networks, see different value through different products and through different platforms. And the job of Congress is to understand that need of their constituents and create an environment in which, the regulatory requirements that we can put in place and the other laws that need to be there to ensure that that's as safe as possible while still giving them the freedom to do that is extremely important. And so it's like, put aside that viewpoint of do you like this technology? Is this the cool development or not? And understand that people are engaged in this, right? Regardless of what number you use, right?
My whole thing, Trump isn't the only one
25 million people, right? There's a lot of Americans who are engaging in this technology
I'm sure
in good faith,
Elon
and it's
will
incumbent on Congress and on the Senate to recognize that
I'm
and
sure
put
it's
into
a
place the
couple of
regulations
people
that are
that's going to
necessary
be
for that to
wealthier than
Very
Donald
well
Trump.
said.
Donald Trump.
Ms. Haber, if you were speaking to the Senate, what would you say to them about the importance of passing the Clarity Act?
They just don't like that he president and he got this power and he got his own coin. They just don't like the idea of him having this much power and being involved in this.
In the financial markets and in technology, failing to pass clarity risks losing that leadership position, and it puts us in the country in a reactive posture where we are responding to regulations that are imported by other countries rather than exporting the standards that we want to set and have the
Oh, what happened? I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
Joker said no.
Get us off. It's freezing. This stream is freezing. They trying to lock me out, gang. Fuck. My shit froze, gang. My whole fucking computer.
What?
They froze my whole damn computer. Oh, fuck. They stay doing that dumb shit. Okay, that concludes the hearing. Restrain, yeah. Y'all did it at the tail end. If y'all was gonna take me off, y'all goddamn 2 hours late.
Right. Right.
2 hours late. We ain't had no problems the whole stream, D. I swear to God, we ain't had no problems. Now look at me, frozen as hell. Frozen. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, yeah, but so yeah, the hearing has concluded. I don't believe any Democrats was there. If they were, they didn't say anything. The room was very small, wasn't a lot of people in there, as y'all can see. So yeah, we got the hearing over with. So now we wait for them to tell us when they're gonna do a full Senate vote. When that will be, we don't know yet. I know they go on vacation. What is it, August 10th? I forgot the date. I forgot the exact day in August. I know it's like the first or second week. So they got to get it done before that. If not, this goes into after midterms, which means it ain't gonna get done this year. So look forward to get done in 2027. I wouldn't set any expectations on them getting this bill passed. I know some of y'all are like, they gotta pass it, they gotta pass it. I would not get my hopes up. That's all I'm saying, because I want a lot of y'all to be disappointed. I would remain optimistic.
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
3 weeks. I mean, the Democrats not showing up to the hearing. Y'all let me know in the chat if I'm tripping, but them not showing up wasn't a good sign, which means they are not voting for the bill that they have drafted up. Yeah, August 7th. Okay, August 7th.
So even less time.
Yeah. Yeah. He was already, yeah. I was just reading some comments. Do these Democrats even talk to their voters to see what the fuck they want? Man, no. Democrats think they want us. That's the thing with Democrats. That's why I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of neither party, but I'm not a fan of the Democratic Party because they want us reliant. They want us, basically, they want us out here begging. You know what I'm saying? I don't agree with that. The Democrats want us relying on Social Security checks when we get older. When you're younger, they want you to just have all these kids, get on welfare, depend on the government for food stamps and whatnot, and just depend on the government for all the assistance in the world, and don't have no money for yourself, don't do anything. Just stay in their zones and be poor and bitter. I feel like that's what the Democratic Party ultimately wants. So yeah. None of the Democrats was there. That was sad to see. So yeah, guys, I don't know, because I believe we need 7. Go back check, check behind me, but I think we need 7 Democratic votes. We'd be lucky if we even get 2, which is not good, which means it doesn't pass because we need 60 votes to pass. So this could turn into a situation where maybe this gets signed in an emergency order. Or some type of event occurs and then they have to pass it on some emergency shit. I think that's the only way it gets passed this year, if it doesn't pass through the vote. But again, I would set proper expectations so you're not setting yourself up for huge disappointment, especially if you're looking for financial gain out of this. Be careful, because that shit it'll put a hole in your heart. It'll put a hole in your heart. So that's all I'm saying is be mindful, okay? Be mindful.
Yeah. Just like somebody said, it doesn't matter if they pass it or not. The financial institutions have already started moving forward.
Yeah, they've already started moving forward for sure.
That's true.
Yeah, so and then we already know certain assets are commodities, so they can go ahead and utilize those technologies as well. So they don't need the Clarity Act for those, but we do know for this thing to go full scale, the institutions need the Clarity Act. They need the reassurance that they have protection and that they can't get sued. That's all the fuck they care about, is being protected and not getting sued. So yeah. So yeah, it was a pretty boring hearing because it was no Nancy in there, no Nancy Pelosi's, no
It
Maxine.
wasn't spicy. It wasn't spicy.
Yeah, no Elizabeth Warrens in sight, no Stephen Lynch's. So yeah, it was a pretty moderate hearing for the most part. I mean, they asked questions that they already knew the answer to. They just wanted them to explain certain things. So again, they didn't even discuss ethics. And they probably just didn't bring it up because no Democrats was there. So that was another thing I was kind of looking forward to them discussing today so that we could try and get on a common ground with ethics. But you got to show up to a hearing. So that's why I don't understand about the Democratic Party. You don't y'all have to vote on this bill. Y'all have a say so in it, but you don't show up to the hearings because you don't like the text, all ultimately because you don't like Trump. So you're turning something that's supposed to be for the people, for the American citizens, into a political war. This bill is not supposed to be political. This bill is to protect American investors. That's why I'm telling you. So any type of financial independence, the Democrats are not going to be in favor of the people. And that's why, for the life of me, don't understand why people vote for that party. They do not want you to do great things. They don't. Mm-hmm. They don't. Not financially. From a financial perspective, not financially. They do not want you prospering financially, just from the financial side. I think if a lot of people actually sat down and saw the Democratic views on finances and money and things of that sort, I think a lot of y'all would be like, oh, why the hell do I vote for this party? They don't want you to be successful financially. It's the saddest shit in the world. So, it's an election year. Everything is political right now. Yeah, but they was making this political before that though. Like last year, this bill should have passed last year. It wasn't a midterm year last year, and they still made it about Trump. They still made it about ethics. So now that has nothing to do with it. This is how they are, gang. This is what it is.
Somebody said they'll probably crash the banking system, then they'll pass it under emergency. Yeah, we always said, emergency regulations or something like that might be the catalyst.
How about Trump do the right thing? He already have made billions. He's trying to he's urging them to pass the bill. I ain't on his side. I get what you're saying. I don't like Trump either. What can Trump? I mean, Trump is telling them to pass the bill. He's telling them to get the Clarity Act signed. He said that. He's been very vocal about that. As far as that goes.
It's just personal vendettas. Vendettas at the end of the day.
Because like when you say that, what do you want him to do? Because he's already urging Congress to get the Clarity Act passed and get it to his desk. He's been urging them to do that since last year. Really, he campaigned on it. So yeah,
a whole bunch of big ass babies.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with right now. It's just like, what y'all want him to do? He's already pro crypto, pro clarity. So we're talking about crypto right now. We're not talking about y'all, anything else. We're just talking about the financial system and crypto. When it comes to that, it's a different type of conversation. But a lot of y'all can't decipher between your emotions and us just talking about crypto. You can't get in your feelings. No, even Republican politicians here in Texas are backing off data centers because of the backlash. Oh wow.
Damn.
Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, man, and I think last night had a lot to do with blockchain as well because it was pretty much about voter fraud. But I will talk about it in a different live stream because this live stream is already an hour and 43 minutes. So I think we'll probably come back in like an hour or two. But we'll talk about what Trump said last night. But I think that this kind of ties into getting everything moved on the blockchain because he wants that ID verification and stricter voter ID and proof of citizenship. He wants to get that stuff passed. And the only way that they could do this where it makes sense is to move it on the blockchain. I don't know any other way. You know what I'm saying? If this bill passes, how do they okay, so now that y'all have the problem, what's the solution? How do y'all combat it now? So now what are you going to do? So you need voter ID. How do you plan to do that? What systems do you plan to utilize to get that done and make it safe? Because I'm trying to figure out why the hell China got all this data and all these documents. They got so much. They have so much of it. They literally have. They acquired 200.
Not hard to I remember watching. I forget what it was, but it's not hard to breach the security that we got over here. It's really not that hard. It could be. It's already been breached. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, that's what he's saying. It's been vulnerable for a very long time now. So, so yeah, we're gonna discuss that on the next live. Got a couple things to go over with that. Because it's to me it's common sense. Because why? Because it's crazy. Because I have to show an ID if I want to go get a beer at the bar right now, right? I would have to show my ID, but I don't have to show my ID to vote for the president of the United States. And it's the most powerful country in the world, and we don't have to show an ID. That kind of voting polls and vote, and we weren't verifying if they was even an American citizen. That's crazy. When you actually like think about it from that perspective.
You're just letting anybody
yeah, we were just letting anybody in. Like that kind of don't make sense. And this ain't about Democrat or Republican. This is a common conversation. Like, do y'all literally? This ain't about Trump. Just take if y'all could take Trump out of.
This is about safety. For real.
This is about safety, yeah. Like, does that make any sense to y'all? Like, taking Trump out of the picture so y'all can take y'all emotions out of it. Did it make any sense all these years we've been able to go and vote with no ID? You didn't have to show any type of ID to prove that you're an American citizen. That definitely should have been a thing. That should have, even if it was just a law saying, hey, yeah, you must show your ID to vote. That was simple. That was simple. I don't get it. But I know a lot of people gonna find a way to disagree just because it's Trump talking about it. So that's why at this point you don't even want to be having these type of conversations because people are so emotional when it comes to him that you can't even have a literal conversation. Because I'm so non-emotional when it comes to him because I don't care for Democrats or Republicans. Like I wouldn't have cared if what I'm saying, Trump, Kamala, or AI president. We can't have common conversations because people are so goddamn emotional. Like. But y'all, what happened last night is actually a big deal. They actually exposed treason. They definitely exposed treason to some degree. So this is definitely gonna be interesting. Some of y'all probably not gonna tune in, and that's fine because I don't feel like arguing with y'all anyway. But it happened yesterday, and I think this has a lot to do with moving everything over digitally. And being more transparent, and the blockchain is for that, which is why we're gonna be discussing it. Because I know some of y'all like, why are you talking about it? Because they're going to need the blockchain for it. That's why we're going to talk about it. Because I don't know any other way they can be transparent. Trying to, as far as bringing voter ID and things of that nature.
Yeah. It's going to happen. It's happening already. It's happening. I don't know what state I live in.
Okay, so during the 2024 elections, I was living in Los Angeles. So but even when I lived in LA, I did not have a California ID. I was never getting a California ID. I never wanted to claim California. I don't like Cali. No offense to people that's from California. I just did not have a good experience there. However, I have a Nevada ID. I went to California and voted. They did not ask for my ID, and I voted in the state of California. Cali didn't ask for my ID. She said I didn't need it. I tried to give it to her too, because my shit be on the back. Well, not right now, but my shit be on the back of my phone. Y'all can see my ID right there. Be on the back of my phone. I tried to give it to her. I was going like this. She said, no, you don't need your ID. See, she looked at me and was like, oh, she's gay. She's a lesbian. She finna go in here and vote. That's what she thought. And I said, oh, I'm an investor. I'm pro-crypto. And Kamala ain't pro-crypto, so she didn't get my vote. So when I gave her my ballot back, she looked at me like I was crazy because I had Trump checked off because she didn't know. Like, you just assumed, but she ain't asked for no ID. And I'm like, gang, he pro-crypto. I got to vote for my pockets. I'm voting for my pockets. I'm not voting for anything else. I only came for my pockets. And because at the time, my girlfriend was like, you got to vote. You're ignorant. So I just went. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go vote. But you ain't like, I'm going to go vote for.
For her, you was checking the boxes like, oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? You black. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I was checking all the boxes for a Democrat. Yeah, you thought, shorty. She found out real quick. I looked out, I laughed. I said, you thought I was going to be you funny as hell. I don't care about none of that.
Shit crazy.
That's where, I don't care about none of that gay shit. I don't give a fuck about none of that. You think they won't read it? Yeah. They asked for ID in Michigan. Okay, so certain states ask for IDs, but I'm trying to remember in North Carolina. I haven't voted in North Carolina since 2016, so that's been 10 years. I can't remember if North Carolina. Somebody in North Carolina from the chat. Somebody in North Carolina, your girl dumped you after that. Nah, she ain't dumped me after that. She knew she didn't think I was actually gonna do it until I was done, and she actually saw it. She said, "You really voted for him?" I said, "I'm pro." I said, "Why would I?" said, "I am pro crypto. Why would I vote for Kamala?" That don't make sense. Like, I have a hefty amount of cash in crypto. Why the fuck would I vote for somebody who's against my investments? We talking about my future. That's how I looked at it. Like,
that's how you look at it, right? Yeah,
that's my future. Like, that's my investment portfolio. I'm gonna vote for who is best for my future and my investment portfolio. That was my sole reasoning. But yeah, nope, I'm from North Carolina. No ID check. Yeah, I couldn't remember. It's been 10 years. So yeah, North Carolina don't do ID checks either. Because I don't think I had to show my shit either.
Damn. They were just letting anybody just pull up.
Yeah. So yeah, but some people saying they state do ask for the ID. So I think it depends on the state.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be a conversation to have, because regardless, we'll talk about it, because what Trump said yesterday was kind of flawed. Which we knew he was telling, like, he tell half truths and he lied at the same time. That's why I can't.
Somebody said your mic is off. Your mic is off. Yeah, I can't hear on YouTube.
Y'all can hear me on TikTok, right? Who mic off? Oh, unless my shit acting stupid. We might have to come back. We might have to go out and come back, bro. How's it going for you now with your portfolio? It's going great. My portfolio is actually up about 1,000%. Since he said we were going to be the crypto capital of the world, my portfolio has been up over 1,000% ever since. So yeah, if you were trying to throw a shot, if you were trying to throw a shot there, you failed. Portfolio's been doing great. I'm not a late bloomer to crypto. What? Thankfully, I was early, so I have not been affected like some of these people have. Yeah, no, okay, y'all can hear me? Okay. You're good on YouTube. Okay. I got in early, so yeah, that was an epic fail if you think you just tried to throw a shot. But guys, what we found out, what Trump basically exposed last night, you know what I'm saying, is your vote didn't matter anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
that's basically what's being exposed here. So let's actually just go ahead and go over it then. Fuck it. Basically, what's being exposed is, so it's some projects. So Trump told some half truths, like I said, from just what I kind of collected this last night and this morning.
Okay.
So
what are you talking about? I ain't watch it. I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't watch it.
Oh yeah. I did, because I just wanted to see what it was gonna be about, because I heard something about China. I just wanted to make sure he won't finna say some dumb shit like we going to war with China, because that would be absolutely stupid. So yeah, so China. So let's talk. I'm gonna just start from the top. So what Trump said. So he basically came up there and said that U.S. elections are vulnerable to fraud, hacking, foreign influences. So he talked about China and the voter data. So he claimed that China acquired about 220 million U.S. voter files, and used or could use that information for election-related influences or fraud. So he reported notes that voter roll information is often partly public or commercially available, and the release material did not clearly show that China changed votes or altered an outcome. So this is from NPR and CNN. So they're highly emphasizing this. My whole thing is, though, if we can't prove that they altered the outcome, why do they have the data? And how did they obtain it, and who gave it to them? Because y'all had to see they was breaching the goddamn system. So we still have a problem here. So maybe he could not prove that they altered the outcome, but he did prove that they have your data. So this is still a problem. So this is still a red. So the Democrats, because NPR is Jewish, CNN, that's all Democratic. So of course they're trying to emphasize that, but it's a red flag here. They have our voting data. Why do they have our voting data? This is still a problem. So voting machines and election systems. So he argued that voting machines, voter databases, poll books, and election websites are vulnerable to cyber attacks. Election security experts generally agree that vulnerabilities can exist, but they distinguish between a system being theoretically vulnerable and evidence that vulnerabilities were actually exploited. And NPR's coverage emphasizes that Trump did not provide new evidence of a fraudulent vote being cast or votes being manipulated. So that is why I said Trump told some half truths yesterday. He just kind of was like, "Oh, they breached our data, so that means they altered the votes." Like, that's what I'm saying. He kind of lied at the same time. But it's still a red flag because they were able to, breach our system and get our data. So I still believe that this ain't nothing to just be like, oh, okay, we're good. We're not good. I still don't think this is good as a bunch of Chinese people with your goddamn name, address, and all your information right now. So yeah, but the White House claimed more than 250,000 non-citizens were registered in 4 states. That's what I'm saying. More than 250,000 non-citizens were registered in 4 states. According to, go on mute real quick. But according to NPR, the fact sheet did not provide detailed support for how that number was calculated. Existing research was has generally found non-citizen voting to be very rare. And then it talks about Michigan voter registration allegations because he talked about that. He referenced the alleged voter registration fraud that was tied to a Democratic aligned group in Michigan. So that claim concerns registration forms and not proven vote count manipulation. So that was another thing. And then CNN also noted that the speech presented these allegations as part of a broader argument for election restrictions. And then also it was a push for stricter voting laws. And so it just talks about the speech also was a political push for a strict voter ID. So here's where I said we're gonna have to talk about it, because now they're pushing for a strict voter ID or proof of citizenship bill, which referred to in coverage as the Save America Act. So the Associated Press reported that Trump used the address to justify new voting restrictions, but did not produce evidence that votes had been manipulated or that any election outcome had been altered. Now, we keep running with that narrative, but we're running away from the fact that another country has the data. I still why are we not concerned? That's why I didn't want to pull the article from CNN and NPR, but I knew y'all was gonna come up here and think I'm a goddamn Trump supporter, so I wanted to get a Democratic write-up so y'all wouldn't be doing too much this morning. But that's why, because I know some of y'all why would you get NPR and CNN? I got them to be fair so that y'all won't be in here crying and shit. But yeah, so basically, if we let me scroll down. Let's get to the China, because I want to get to the China stuff, because I'm saying, okay, I got y'all. I see the half lie, I see the truth that he told, and I see the lie that he told. I got it. We got it. Now let's talk about the China documents, because that's what the fuck we need to be concerned about. Okay, the China-related documents Trump released and what they appear to show. So the China allegedly collected or obtained U.S. voter data. So Trump claimed China acquired about 220 million U.S. voter files, including information like your name, addresses, phone numbers, your party registration or political preference data, and other voter roll information. So his argument was that this could allow China to identify voters, target them with influence operations, or exploit weaknesses in election systems.
How do you know China got it?
Huh?
How do you know China got it?
See, if you go look at the documents, the United States basically gave let them. They was in on it at the time.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Oh yeah, they got to go at 10. Yeah, tell them to get in the shower. My bad. You see, y'all done got me missing. My nieces got to go somewhere. Okay. So yeah, his argument was about that. So voter roll data is not the same thing as ballots. So of course they go into that. Anyway, the documents allegedly said China preferred Trump to lose. So Trump cited intelligence that he said showed the Chinese Communist Party wanted to hurt his presidency and reduce his chances of re-election. CNN's transcript says one of the claims involved intelligence suggesting China wanted to undermine domestic confidence in Trump or influence business leaders, journalists, or public opinion against him. So that kind of activity would be closer to an influence operation than direct election fraud. That is where Trump is kind of lying, because he's just trying to get the Save America Act passed, but this is an influence operation. And I'm so glad that this part was pointed out when I kind of was trying to get an understanding of what essentially this was. So he gonna run with it because he want to get the Save America Act passed, but this is an influence operation. That's why China having your data is very, very bad, because they can use it for a lot of things, and I'll get into that right now. So why? Because I literally went and I said, why would they want to use U.S. voting data? So number one is to target and influence campaigns. This is why it's bad that they have your data. See, a lot of y'all would have a problem with this if it was in favor of Republicans and not Democrats, but y'all don't give a fuck because it's in favor of Democrats and not Republicans. So y'all cool with it because you feel like you're getting your way. But this is actually not good. So the targeted influence campaigns, voter data can help identify where people live, their party registration, their voting history, their demographic patterns, swing districts, politically active communities. They can be used to aim propaganda more precisely. I'm gonna say that one more time. They can be used to aim propaganda more precisely. Next is because building detailed profiles on Americans. Voter data becomes more powerful when combined with other data sets, such as hacked corporate data, social media, consumer location data, employment records, government breach data, phone numbers, and email addresses. So by itself, voter data may be limited. Combined with other data, it can help build detailed profiles of millions of people. So that could be useful for intelligence gathering, blackmail, targeting public officials, identifying military, intelligence, academic, or tech sector workers, and tracking activists, donors, journalists, or campaign staff. So this is very, very dangerous for them having this information. And it's also mapping political geography. So foreign intelligence services care about how political power works inside the U.S. So voter data can help them understand which countries are shifting politically, where turnout is weak, where elections are close, which communities are persuadable. Like they know, like, you know what I'm saying? They know how we finna move now because they got our info. And then creating convincing scams or disinformation. It's a lot of that going on. So if someone has real voter information, they can make fake messages look more believable. So, like, for examples, I think we all get these text messages about your registration at this address has been flagged, your polling place has changed, you are listed as inactive, click here to fix it. You may be investigated for illegal voting. Your mail ballot was rejected, like things like that. They can really play on people's phone now. So even if only a small number of voters believe it, they can create confusion and distrust. So that is why, so them trying to skip over the fact that this isn't a big deal, that China has our voting information. It's a fucking big deal. It could literally alter elections now. So that's why I still think it is some fraud here. It is some fraud here because they have information that could literally alter elections. So he may not have been able to put a finger on it and actually prove here is where they alter elections. Here's where they change votes. He might not have been able to do that, but this is enough to prove that we do need to take this. We need to fix this. This is
They ain't hearing them, no. They ain't hearing them, no.
No, because he's a Republican. And nobody's hearing him. People think I'm delusional right now because it's like it seems like I'm taking his side, but I'm kind of like, there's a problem though. You know what I'm saying? So, but the bottom line is that China would want voting data because it helps with influence, targeting, intelligence collection, social division, and cyber operations. So yeah, I think this is pretty bad. I think what he exposed yesterday, this would have been a big deal in 2016. This would have been a big deal in 2008. Like y'all would have took this way more seriously. This would have been the biggest news in the world. Y'all been outside. A lot of y'all wouldn't have went to work today. Like it would have been a lot of protesting going on. Like y'all would have took this way more serious 10 years ago. Like it's like y'all don't care now. And that's insane to me because now we know that our elections are tampered with. Regardless, they've been tampered with because they're able to persuade people because now they can say, hey, you know, like I just told y'all, they can say, hey, yeah, your voting poll, yeah, you can't vote over there, you got to go over here, and then they put you in a different district, and it switches shit. Like it's just boys, so gang.
Strange days,
man. Days.
Oh man,
we in some wild times.
Wow. Nah, it's I mean, but you know, we've always talked about this. We've always talked about like how this was gonna happen. This was gonna be a thing. You know, it was fun to laugh at in 2022, 2023. You know what I mean? But now that you're seeing like this is an actual possibility, you know, and it's taking place, and we're living through history. Hey, what can you do? What can you do?
Shout out to Frozen. Frozen said elections have been altered for decades. Do we still think votes count? People like me have been trying to tell people this since when did I wake up? 2018, 2019. I've been trying to tell people. The president is select, but we can't say too much. I'm on TikTok. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. This has been happening. Like, because hell, we hear about it in other countries. In other countries where it's just like, oh yeah, there was some type of voter, mishap, or somebody stole the election, this politician did that. Why would it be different here?
Exactly. Live visibility restricted for 10 minutes. Your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted in search results for the next 10 minutes because your live does not comply with the For You feed eligibility standards.
That was coming. There we go. And that proves your point.
Now,
that proves the point right there.
I had came on here talking like a Democrat, they'd have left me the hell alone. But because I said no, okay, we might not can put a finger on them actually altering votes, but they still got our data. Mm-hmm. Now, if I had came on here and talked about that and really was fixated on that fact, like CNN and NPR and the rest of these things, the rest of these news outlets is doing, y'all would have left me the hell alone. But because I'm over here like, no, this is still a big deal. This is still a problem. And clearly our elections have been altered with in some capacity. Mm-hmm. Y'all bothering us. It's crazy.
All day.
When I first learned about the Electoral College back in school, I knew it was a grift. Exactly. But will the act keep married women from voting? I don't know. The whole point is our lives are either directly or indirectly being affected. Exactly. Thank you, Cecil. TikTok, a Chinese company. The U.S. run it now. The U.S. run TikTok now, right?
Yeah.
The U.S. run TikTok now, though, but it is a Chinese company. But the TikTok, U.S. run it now.
Yeah. Oracle, whoever them jokers that bought it, they got it.
Exactly. So yeah, I think this is some pretty just on the blockchain side of it though, as far as if he does get his way and they do pass the Save America Act, and then just to let y'all know, if they don't pass the Save America Act, now because Trump did that address and he outed this information, he now can go just do an executive order and it's justified. It'll be justified. So then he'll just pass, I forgot what it's called, but he'll just pass an executive order to get this done. So this is just like him going to desperate measures to get the Save America Act passed. So now he's done, so basically they'll be able to say, hey, he did all he could do. He even exposed to the public that China has our data and that our elections have been tampered with in some capacity. And yeah, so if y'all don't vote this through, then we're gonna have to do an executive order. Like, it's justified now.
Right.
Just to let y'all.
Ain't trying to hear.
They ain't trying to hear it, gang.
They ain't trying to hear what he's saying, fam. Like,
nope, they ain't trying to hear it at all, gang. So here we are. I gotta go check my collard greens on me. Yeah. Larry Ellis from Oracle bought TikTok. Okay. China has data that anyone can buy. Yeah, so they got your so China putting y'all data for sale for sure. Y'all voting data. They probably about to sell it to everybody. They gonna sell that joint. That shit probably gonna cost about 50 M's. They gonna take it too. They're like, yeah, $50 million will give you all the U.S. citizens voting data.
That's cheap.
That's probably mad cheap. They probably
low ball.
Yeah, they probably selling it for more, maybe 50 billion. Who knows? But China definitely selling it. They're gonna definitely sell it. So, and the government knew. I think the documents that Trump released yesterday also proved that the government knew this already and didn't do anything about it. They kind of let it happen. Yeah, it's insane to think about, but it's crazy because, like I was telling y'all yesterday when I came on live, this whole thing is crazy because had this been reversed and it was Trump that won the 2020 election, and Kamala came out last night and said that the 2020 election was treason, China helped Trump cheat, blah, blah, blah. If Kamala Harris had came out and said this last night, we wouldn't have paid a bill today. Y'all wouldn't have went to work. Y'all would have went crazy. Y'all would have went crazy. There's so much going on right now. Like, y'all would have cared, but y'all don't care because it's Trump. That shit is crazy, bro. That shit is crazy.
Mm.
Like, we would have had a whole.
We say all the time. 2020 told you everything you needed to know about Americans, fam. Everything.
Yeah.
Why would it change 6 years later?
Yep. Gang, we would have had a whole revolution going on today, gang. We would have been revolution strategizing. Like, strategizing for a revolution. If this had been Kamala coming out saying Donald Trump and China, tampered with voting, and he cheated and China helped him. And he also knew that China had access and breached our information and took all our data, and he didn't do anything about it. Like, man, y'all be in an uproar right now, bro. I'm like, miss me with the bullshit. Miss me with the bullshit. I don't want to hear it. Did y'all see Stripe is trying to buy PayPal for 53? Yeah, so PayPal ain't going for it. I seen something earlier. PayPal basically like, nah, they ain't doing that. Yeah, we ain't finna let them do that pretty much. So yeah. We did see that. Let me see. The data center is under the ocean. Somebody said they causing global warming. Yeah, guys. So yeah, that's pretty much it with that. You know what I'm saying? Ain't really too much to discuss at this point. He put out all the files and information to show that it's some type of fugazi stuff going on. It's been going on for a long time, which a lot of us knew, and we're just happy to see some evidence. Excuse me, finally starting to come out. I want Trump to go back to the two. So let's go back to the two. Let's go back to the elections of 2008. I want to see that too. How far can he go back? Like, how long this been going on? Yeah. Like, how far back can we go?
I feel with 2008 that was probably legit to a degree, because
you think it was a legit election?
Well, I'm not gonna say fully because I don't know, but I'm saying like a lot of black people voted for Obama.
Yeah, from what I can remember, because in 2008, I think I was in the 8th grade or 9th grade.
A lot of black people voted for Obama.
9th grade. I was a freshman.
I voted for Obama. It was happy.
Yeah, I couldn't vote. I was in 9th grade. Yeah, I was a freshman in high school, so I couldn't vote. But I do remember everybody going to vote. Like, it was a big deal. If you was black and said you want to vote, and you
it was like a given. It was like a given.
He was getting smacked on the spot, gang. Like, you said, you ain't doing what? You ain't voting for Barack?
Yeah.
Let's just say what it is. The propaganda and disinformation has people in the chokehold. It definitely does, Cecil. Dems cheated in 2016 too, but they underestimated the massive red wave. They did. They did. What's bullshit? Somebody said more bullshit, no evidence. What's bullshit? What's bullshit? Because the what you're saying is bullshit is China breaching our system and taking our voting data. I don't think that's bullshit. Now, there is no evidence to prove that they altered votes. Now, that is no evidence. But they did steal our data, our voting data, to be specific. So that was not said. Yes, what was not said? Anyway, I'm getting off. I ain't arguing with people. If you want to fall for propaganda, if you think that everything is peaches and cream in your government, if you think your vote counts, and you think they've never voted, and you think they've never altered with elections, think that. That's on you. That has nothing to do with me. That's
a fact.
Yeah, documents released on Venezuela too and compromised voting systems. Exactly. That's why Trump is asking for a full, thorough investigation. Exactly. So if you think everything is peaches and cream, your government isn't corrupt, you think that your voting hasn't been tampered with, if you really think that, gang, okay. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I wish I was in the Twilight Zone too. It's probably a little, you know what I'm saying, less stressful. You don't gotta like really see.
Oh yeah. Like,
you don't gotta see the world for what it is. Like, if that's, you know what I'm saying, that's gotta be kind of peaceful sometimes, but that's cool. Yeah, so it's fine. But other than that,
ignorance is bliss, fam.
I'm telling you. but other than that, y'all, we gonna see y'all next time we go live again. If y'all want to take advantage of that free trust, fill out the questionnaire. The link is in the bio. Take advantage of that free trust while we have, you know what I'm saying, while those are available. Once you fill out the questionnaire, they'll give y'all a phone call. You'll find out about the company. You get all your questions answered. But yeah, right now, free trust with a policy. So yeah, make sure you got a policy on your kids, yourself, your spouse, whatever the case, but you get that free trust included with that. So definitely hit up D, fill out that questionnaire. Go ahead and take advantage of the free trust. Other than that, man, shout out to everybody who see, you know what I'm saying, what's really going on. And to y'all people that want to stay in the Twilight Zone, I wish y'all the best.